60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. I ask permission to address the House for 1 hour. Granted, thank you. I'd like to commend my colleague who has just presented a heartfelt case for scientific and health-related research by the National Institute of Health. I concur with him that this is a very important part of what we do here, and we have budgets that we have to meet, but this should be a significant part of our budget. I would like to also note, as I did when he recognized me, that yes, the government needs to play in a significant part, the National Institute of Health, in trying to find cures and trying to find ways of improving the health of the American people. But it is not just up to the National Institute of Health, not just up to the government employees, but my approach, and which I will be talking about tonight, is something vital, that the private sector needs to be involved not only in this type of health innovation, but in all sorts of innovation and technological jumps forward that some people think only government can do. But in fact, it's the private sector, and especially the small independent inventors, that have played such a significant role in furthering human progress, uplifting humankind. And so while I agree with the government's role, and especially in these health-related issues, I think that we should dedicate ourselves to make sure that private money is going into this. In my area, yes, the University of California at Irvine is doing exemplary work. Yes, but so are many private companies that have invested money in healthcare technology development. Some of them, I might add, have been taxed to death by a 2.5% tax on their gross simply for being the inventors of health-related technologies. This type of medical device tax, which makes the manufacturer of devices the most heavily taxed people in this country, is a deterrent to having people in the private sector investing in exactly what my colleague was trying to suggest, into new approaches to these various diseases. But that's also true not only of medical technology, but of technologies across the board that really impact on the well-being, on the standard of living of ordinary people throughout our country. I rise today to draw attention of my colleagues to a legislative threat to the safety and well-being of the American people. We dodged a bullet in the last session of Congress on this very same issue, alerted by our aggressive yet unsuccessful attempt to stop that effort, that rancorous legislation in the House, which it passed by a large majority last time around. But we raised such a ruckus that the Senate was inundated with a wide spectrum of opposition to this supposed reform that had passed the House. There was so much opposition, in fact, that the Senate simply refused to bring up the bill for consideration. What is the issue that is being rammed through the House right now and was once exposed, and once we exposed it the last time around, it caused the Senate to turn back and to not let it go through? Well, what it has been, there's been an ongoing fight here in Washington, one that most of the public are totally unaware of, and worse than that, most of my colleagues are totally unaware of, that for the last 20 years, there has been a classic case of crony capitalism that plagues our country at play here on a specific issue. The big guys, the big crony capitalists, are trying to diminish the rights of the little guy in order to make more money. Surprise, surprise. And in this case, it will basically undermine America's prosperity and security in the long run while hurting the little guys while the big guys get their way. I am certainly not opposed to the profit motive. But first and foremost, we need to ensure that powerful forces don't change the economic rules in order to enrich themselves unjustly. Unseen by most Americans has been the attempt by mega multinational corporations to undermine and, yes, destroy a constitutional right of our citizens. This in order to fill their pockets at the expense of American citizens who don't have the means to defeat such a power play. I am referring to an attack on the fundamental constitutional right of Americans to own what they have created. This right, written into our law by the at the Constitutional Convention itself, which wrote our Constitution, is now under attack. A clandestine legal maneuver that would neuter our inventors' protections and permit powerful, and I say multinational corporations, to steal what now rightfully belongs to American inventors, and thus ordinary Americans will be hurt, and of course the big corporations will benefit. It is not just dispossessing individual inventors, but this is a power grab that will undermine the prosperity we all have enjoyed as Americans. The less than forthright attack on our patent system will undermine the economic well-being of our working people who depend on the United States for being technologically superior to the working people of other societies. People in all these societies work very hard. It's not hard work, it's hard work coupled with technology, and we have ensured through a patent system that we would be developing the technology that would give Americans the edge. Our founding fathers believed that technology and freedom, and yes, profit motive, was the formula that would uplift humankind. As I say, they wrote into our Constitution a guarantee of the property rights of inventors and authors. It is the only place in the body of our Constitution that the word right is actually used. The Bill of Rights was added after the body of the Constitution. But in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of our Constitution, it states, "The Congress shall have the power to promote the progress and science of useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries," end of quote. Now, this provision has served America well. It has led to a general prosperity where we have technological advances that uplift our own people, give our own people the chance to outcompete those people who work their hearts out overseas but don't have the same technological support system in their economic endeavors. Well, this provision in America has led to prosperity. It's helped our national security. The fact is, we could never dream of trying to defeat the enemies of freedom throughout the world on a man-to-man basis. It's only our ability to be able to bring technology and our genius to play that has given us a leverage over countries that have tens of millions of people and, by the way, don't really value human life. No, we need to make sure we are technologically superior, and it has been our patent system that has given our inventors the chance to invent things that will protect all of us from aggression and prevent evil forces, anti-democratic forces throughout the world, fanatic forces from overwhelming us and overwhelming our defenses. And of course, this has, having been the country of new ideas, the country where we encouraged people to be innovative, we have uplifted the life of average people. Average people here now are able to live decent lives as compared to the average people in so many countries of the world. Yes, Americans work hard, and as I say, so do other people. It's the technology that makes the difference. Our technology has multiplied the results of the hard work of our people. That's the secret of America's success: technology and freedom. And our strong patent system is right there at the foundation of that principle. It is what has made the difference in this vital area to our security and our well-being. Yet today, we have multinational corporations, the same ones who run overseas to do business with communist China and with America's enemies and with people who treat their populations with total disregard. Yes, these multinational corporations want to diminish the patent protection of the American people because they don't want to pay Americans for their creating new technologies. They don't want to give them their share when they create something that will uplift our people. Over the years, we fought and turned back many efforts to weaken our patent system. I doubt whether half the new members of this Congress are fully aware of the aggressive and brutal fights that we have been in over patents and the patent system over these last 20 years. A little over 20 years ago, they were saying we need to change the patent system in order to harmonize it with the rest of the world. Our patent system was out of sync with the rest of the world. Well, of course, our constitutional rights are out of sync with the rest of the world. We're out of sync because we protect people's right to go to church and not be repressed by some other religion. We are out of sync with most of the world. We protect people's right to speak and to criticize their government or to assemble, or to try to join even unions or other activities in the economic area. No, we actually are out of sync with a lot of areas, but they decided to say we need to harmonize our law on patents with the rest of the world, which have weak patent systems, which their laws have been determined by basically what's going to help the big guy and what's going to get new ideas out into the hands of the big industrialists. Well, we have beat back major efforts. The first ones, as I say, were on harmonizing the law, and they had two big issues. One was to harmonize our law with the rest of the world. Our system has been, if someone submits their patent, no matter how long it takes for that patent to get issued, it is secret, and in fact, it's a felony, I believe, for someone to disclose at the patent office a patent application. So, and then when you get your patent, then it's published to the world, but you are granted 17 years of ownership. Well, their goal was what? Their goal was to do it the European and Japanese way, which is, after 18 months if you apply for your patent, it's published. If you don't have it, even if it takes another 5-10 years to get it, it's published. I called it the Steal American Technologies Act, and we managed to turn that one around. The other half of that particular onslaught was that we have now a guaranteed protection, as it said in the Constitution, as I just read, for a specific period of time. We were granted 17-year patent protection. That starts at a time when you are issued your patent. Well, overseas, that's not what it's all about. We're out of sync with them because they say after 18 months, what happens is the minute that you file, the clock starts ticking, and 20 years later, you have no patent protection at all. But that's from filing. It may take you 10 years to get your patent, or 15 years. So they're dramatically reducing the viability of the ownership rights of a patent, of a person who's applied for a patent. All to the benefit, of course, of these big guys who are saying, oh, well, we can speed this up maybe with our contacts. And the little guys overseas over and over again get beaten up and their materials stolen from them by these powerful forces. We don't want that to happen here. We protect the rights of the little guy here. Well, we won those fights, what I'm just talking about. We won those fights with standing tall and tough on the issue. And yes, there were some compromises over the years where we beat those first two issues that I talked about. We won that case. But over the years, there's been several other hard-fought patent battles where we compromised and were able to come up with something that was acceptable to both sides. Well, now, after a few years of preparing the political battleground in Washington, name that now, after Google has provided more campaign contributions than any other corporation in the world on various issues, and that we have other big corporations providing big campaign contributions. And I'm not saying they're buying votes, but what they're buying is attention. And people don't even know about the issue, but now Google's been able to explain their case. But they don't hear the other side. And that's why it's up to us to make sure every member of Congress knows what the issue is when it comes to the patent fight, instead of walking down to the floor unaware of how significant this is. There's only one group of people that's going to be able to make sure their congressman is focused on just how significant this issue is, and that is the American people have to notify their congressman in order to let them know we should not be weakening our patent system. There is no excuse to undermine the independent inventor when he's trying to protect his rights to a patent, or we won't have independent inventors, and we won't be on the cutting edge of change as we have been. After a few years of preparing, as I say, they're ready. A new onslaught has been prepared, and it's already been attacked. Now, as I say, they claimed in the beginning that they wanted to harmonize our system. But, of course, we don't want to harmonize and make our system weaker in order to be the same with other countries. So that fight went back, well, it went back over 20 years. But now, what they've laid the groundwork for and are bringing up, and in the last 3 years, we've seen this fight for this second round. 3.5 years ago, the House passed the American Invents Act, which fundamentally diminished our patent system, weakening its protection for ordinary citizens. It still, even with that weakening, was better than what you had in Europe and in Japan. The negative impacts of that legislation are just now being felt. They're just now moving through the patent system and being implemented by the Patent Office. Boy, we're going to find out what happens when you undermine the little guys in order to help the big guys, because you don't, after a few more years, where is the innovation coming from? From the big multinational corporate bureaucracies, from the government bureaucracy? No. When we've undermined the small inventor, the individual inventor, we've taken the profit motive out of this, we have put roadblocks in the way of America moving forward. But the next wave began in this patent battle just a little more than a year ago. Last year, as I said, the onslaught aimed at neutering the rights of the small inventor was barely turned back. And that bill came forward, and we got it through. Actually, it passed the House with a substantial margin. But when citizens and universities and small businesses across America understood, because of the great debate that we had here, what was at stake, they inundated their senators with calls and visits, and their message was, don't undermine our rights, don't undermine the rights of the small inventor, don't undermine this constitutional right. It's just as precious to us as the rights of speech and press and religion. Let's not undermine that in the name of helping some multinational corporation squash an opposition to a guy who's invented something and wants to get his rightful payment for the work that he's done. And of course, the power brokers don't claim that they must change the measure of legal protection that we offer inventors, because they don't claim that it's because the inventors are bad and need to be deprived of long-standing rights, or that the Constitution is just outmoded and we don't want to follow it. They don't argue that. No. These powerful interests, mega multinational corporations, well-heeled here in Washington, these powerful interests have to have a boogeyman to try to draw away attention from what they're really trying to do. So the issue won't become diminishing the rights of the small inventor, preventing the small inventor from enforcing his patents on people who are trying to steal it, who are big, mega, multinational corporations. No, they don't say that. There's always an excuse, something that has to sound very sinister, a sinister force at play trying to hurt these innocent businessmen. Oh, unfairly at that. We heard it before. About 15 years ago, we heard it was submarine patents. That was the real derogatory term. Submarine patents. That was why we need to change the amount of time that someone is able to actually have as a guarantee for their patent rights. The submarine patent was used to say, oh, so what if after 20 years and you haven't had your patent for 15 years, so you've only got 5 years of protection, so what? It's the submarine patenters we're really trying to get at. Forget the hardship on those little guys, which is the vast majority of people who want to get their patent as soon as possible, but the submarine patenters, meaning we got to really restrict those little guys. Well, Now the big guys have come up with another sinister label. That was a fraud. The submarine patent issue was a fraud. And we fixed it very easily with a very small compromise without having to have all the rights of the little guy eliminated. Simply by saying, if the little guy is can be shown that he prevented the issuance of his patent, trying to elongate that, well then, that clock will start ticking during that time period, and that time will be taken away from him. But if it's not him, if it's a bureaucracy that's holding off the actual issuance of the patent, we shouldn't be doing things that hurt the little guy who's trying to get his patent out. Well, so we got that covered. But now the big guys have come up with another sinister label because submarine patent doesn't apply anymore. We found a way to solve it without hurting the little guy. So now the big guys have come up with this other label, which is aimed at confusing the public about who gets hurt and who benefits from the so-called reforms that are now being shoved through Congress. They are insisting that the need for patent change, basic changes in our patent system, is because of the so-called patent trolls. Over and over again, you will hear this sinister word. Now, let me tell you how cynical this is. There's a guy who was a top executive at one of the electronic companies who is now on my side, or on our side, the side of the little guy, on this issue. But he was very high up in a big company, and they got together with their people to decide what tactic they should use to get the changes done and passed through Congress. They knew they couldn't just attack the small inventor. They knew they couldn't attack the innovators in our society. So what are they going to do to diminish their patent rights? Well, we got to make it sound like it's somebody else who's going to get hurt. And that person has to be evil. The patent troll is what they came up with. This gentleman who worked in the business said he was in a room when that term was formalized by a number of people in the industry. They went around in a circle and said, what is the worst and nastiest sounding term we can come up with in order to vilify that, to draw people's attention away from this issue? And he told me he had suggested patent pirate. And no, patent troll sounds really much more sinister. But that's how cynical these people are. It's arrogant and it's cynical because the patent troll is a creation. Yeah, there are some people who misuse our system. There are frivolous lawsuits that happen in our country. And you know what? It's not just in the patent issue. It's all across the board. There are lawyers that have frivolous lawsuits. They're trying to claim that patent trolls are people with patents that are not legal patents, and they're trying to threaten lawsuits so they'll get paid off. Well, that's happening throughout our system. They're called frivolous lawsuits. There is no need to hurt our small inventors and to phase back their rights as inventors, the rights of their ownership, and the rights to enforce their patent in order to get someone, a lawyer, who's engaged in a frivolous lawsuit. These patent trolls are patent holders. Remember to hear the patent troll? Just think, someone who owns a patent. Unless it's the inventor himself, they say the patent troll is anyone who owns a patent who is not the inventor. So, patent holders or companies who represent patent holders are also people who own patents who get in infringement cases, but these are people who did not invent it themselves, and thus they are called trolls. They are engaged in basically defending their rights against the infringement of large companies, basically. Yeah, there's a few cases where small guys were told. That, again, is a front to try to protect the big guys from the little guys. But there's been infringement on the patents that they own. These regular people who own, and patents are what? It is your property. It's intellectual property. Patents should be looked at that the United States government believes it's your right to own for a given period of time, as I just read in the Constitution, your invention or your writing, and you own it. And if someone is infringing, and if you want to buy it from someone who's invented it but can't afford to basically enforce it, well, you have a right to do that. That doesn't make you an evil troll. That means you have bought something that is a piece of property. And by the way, after a number of years, 10, 13, 14 years, that will no longer be your property because you have the patent protection lasts only a given period of time. Well, these owners are just as valid as any other patents that are granted by the patent office. We're not talking about phony patents. They'll try to make it sound like it is. Oh, there's worthless pieces of paper. No, these are real patents and real pieces of paper that show you have rights to own this particular technology. But huge corporate infringers would have us believe that these patents that they're talking about, that the people are trying to enforce, that these big companies have used, knowing that they're probably someone who owns that, who's developed this new technology, and just forgetting about them and leaving them behind. Well, these big corporate infringers would have to believe all these people are that way. They're not. Almost all of the infringement cases happen by people who legitimately own a legitimate patent. And if not, it should be decided in court. There's nothing wrong with bringing this to court if it's a legitimate patent, or if it's an illegitimate patent, okay. This happens all the time. Are you violating someone's property rights when they own a piece of property and you've built a road across them without asking whether or not you can use their property? No, that should go to court, and in fact, it's not. It is not a frivolous lawsuit for someone who owns a piece of property and someone who maybe owns a mine or something over here and just builds a road across and doesn't ask you about it. No, you have a right for compensation. That's basically what we're talking about, except in this case, you have an inventor who's enriched a big company with something new, but the big company doesn't want to give him any of his royalties for building this new technology. By the way, in the past, big corporations would try to do patent searches to make sure they weren't stepping on the little guy. And they would try to cut deals with these patent owners to try to make sure that they didn't face a lawsuit. And they would be able to chart out exactly what their expenses were. But then they decided, don't do it. Don't even look. Don't check to see if we are stealing this new idea. You know why? They did that because what you have now, and what they've tried to eliminate, is that if a big company intentionally knows that it is violating the patent rights of someone who owns that new technology and infringes upon it, that it knowingly does this, there are triple damages that the inventor can get in his lawsuit against that big company. But the big companies, they say, oh, well, so we won't even look. So they can't prove that we knew we were stepping on these little guys. They don't even look anymore. That's how arrogant they are. And then they worry when a small guy comes up and sues them for infringement. And by the way, why did they want to eliminate the triple damages? Because little guys, regular people, don't have the money to pay for the lawyers necessary for these lawsuits. And the little guy's ability to hire a lawyer on a contingency basis, if you take away that triple damages, you have eliminated the right of almost all of the small inventors to be able to have the protection they need in court. But that was one of their major goals. And by the way, we turned that one back, thank God. But it keeps going. They keep going because this is a way to enrich these powerful multinational corporations in a way that is just, the public isn't seeing it. There's just a change in the rules, and the little guys end up being wealth is that should be going to them is extracted and put into the pockets of these big corporate entities. They have the power, and basically, and they are going to use it, and they have the power in the economy, and they have the power in getting their case across to the members of Congress, because they have the ability to hire lobbyists, and again, and to give campaign contributions, but not to buy votes, and I'm not suggesting that. But when you're here and you have so much time, if you have lobbyists that are working just to get the attention of the member of Congress on the issue for a short period of time, you have succeeded. And these companies can do it, and the little guy can't. The little guy has no way of getting people's attention here. And the fact is that these big corporations, and especially Google, have hired the best representatives in town and spent the most money getting people's attention. The only answer here is to make sure we offset that by making sure the American people call their member of Congress and tell them, don't diminish the patent protection for regular Americans. Don't let this happen. They have won the last couple fights. And again, like I say, by the time it got over to the Senate, some people started paying attention, but we lost it here in the House. Well, the patents that we're talking about are patents. They're not frivolous lawsuits. These are patents that were issued by the United States United States Patent Office, and but huge infringers would have us believe, of course, don't worry, the congressman is just up there trying to protect people who really haven't come up with anything and just have frivolous lawsuits. No, we're talking about tangible items that these people have used without paying the royalty to the man or woman who invented that particular item, that particular technology. What makes these patents different than the good patents, by the way? These same large corporations own thousands of patents. And by the way, most of these corporations are the mega electronic industry companies. So they own lots of patents. So what makes the little guy a patent troll for being willing to try to get some help to fight these big guys? What makes that little guy's patent, or the quote troll's patent, any less real and any less valuable and official as these big companies? They have their patents too. If the small inventor doesn't have the resources to enforce his or her patent in the limited time, they only own this now. Remember, once you grant a patent, you own it for 17 years, and then it's done. Everybody owns it. In the limited time they are granted for ownership, if they don't have the resources to basically enforce their rights, an individual or company can buy their rights and they can create a partnership with a small inventor. And they can see to it to see that there isn't a theft of this little guy's property, and they call it an infringement. There's nothing wrong with someone coming in and saying, well, listen, if you can't enforce this, we think it's a good idea. You have 10 more years of patent protection. We will buy that patent right, just like buying a parcel of land. We're going to speculate that land's going to go up in value or whatever. There's no difference at all. It's a piece of property. It is a property right. It's intellectual property. And this effort to change our patent law is an attack on the very nature of intellectual property. Okay, so the small inventor can't do it. What is wrong with somebody coming in and offering him to buy that patent right from him for those 10 years or to go into partnership with him? Well, I have consulted with a number of outside individual inventors and groups, and they have reaffirmed that the legislation now being proposed disadvantages the little guy against deep-pocketed multinational corporations. This has been achieved in the guise, as I say, of targeting patent trolls. No, you're not vilifying this poor little inventor. This guy works his heart out in his garage, quits his job because he's got an idea, puts all of his money and sells his home in order to build something new, a new technology. I'm sorry that's not, that guy is a hero. And under the guise of getting patent trolls, whatever that is, they are going to smash this little guy that I just described, because they are going to prevent anybody from helping him, because that person who's helping him is a patent troll. This person and company who is contracted with the inventor to see that his or her rights are respected, I consider them to be a positive economic and also a moral force within the concept of determining ownership in our society. How horrible. Making a business, which some of these companies have done, of helping a business out of helping small inventors see to it that their patent rights are enforced. Oh, how horrible. Or how horrible it is for them to be buying patent rights from them. Oh, my goodness. A guy with money says, you can't afford to enforce your rights. I think it's a great idea. I will pay you for this. the fact that that happens and is able to happen in our society means that that little guy now has something of value. And if we take that away and say all these people buying them are all trolls, sounds sinister. Oh, when you do that, the value of our patents for all of our inventors goes down. We are undercutting the wealth that is available to our independent inventors because we are devaluing what they have. If they can't enforce it themselves, they can't sell it to somebody who's not going to commercialize it. Thus, you've got a situation where the patent value we are taking wealth out of the pockets of the least able people in our society in the technology arena, the least able to weather that, and we are putting that money and that power into the pockets of the big, mega, multinational, not just American companies, multinational companies. It's sinful. The proponents of this legislation are covering the fact that they have stolen someone has stolen someone else's patent rights, someone else's intellectual property. And now they want to change the system so they can get away with this theft. That's what it's all about. The big companies have been stealing. They want to get away with it. They need to change the rules of the game so they can get away with it. And the little guy will just give up because he can't go through all the steps now. They would have us believe that all the lawsuits against these companies are frivolous. As I say, that is not the case. Well, the vast majority of them are not. They are definitely, the vast majority of patent infringement cases have very legitimate areas of concern, and they need to be decided by the court, not to have Congress step in and make it more difficult for someone to take someone to court who's stolen his intellectual property. And yes, there are frivolous lawsuits throughout our system. Why are these guys just focusing on patents? They're doing that because this is what these mega corporations will benefit from. Tonight, I draw the attention of the American people to H.R. 9, the Innovation Act, introduced by Chairman Goodlatte with 19 bipartisan co-sponsors. The last Congress, the House Judiciary Committee, held a hearing on this same bill. The same bill that came in last time, this bill that's being proposed now, H.R. 9, is exactly the same bill except maybe with one provision that's taken out, which is a provision that I was able to get out of the bill on the floor in the debate and on an amendment process. By the way, that provision was going to prevent inventors, if they believed they were treated unfairly by the Patent Office, that provision would deny them the right to take it to court. They would have to settle the issue with an ombudsman from the Patent Office. Get that? The right to use court of a U.S. citizen was going to be denied them, and the proponents of this legislation just let it drip off their back like water off a duck's back. Give me a break. That is a huge violation of rights of Americans, but it is just as huge a violation for us to try to diminish their ability to enforce the rights of their own property. So I draw attention to H.R. 9. Last Congress, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing on this almost very same bill. The witnesses at that hearing, including former Patent Office Director Kappos, made it clear that we should move slowly and with great care in making any changes to the patent law, especially in light of the fact that no one yet understands the implication of a similar patent law that was passed 2 years ago, the American Invents Act. The process is just now, from that act, is just now being implemented. I think it's going to have a very negative impact, and we need to know that that's what's going to happen, and we need to work that into our calculus of whether we should pass even more restrictions like are in that first bill. So everyone says, go, take it easy, go slow. Well, make sure you're right before you go ahead. Well, we haven't even digested the last bite Congress has taken out of the patent law. We haven't even digested that at all, and now they want us to gobble down a few more apples. Thus, we need to make sure that we know what we've already gotten ourselves into by biting into this apple. But no, we gotta now commit to even having more and more change before we even know whether that apple is going to turn sour in our stomach and going to cause us to be sick. In and of itself, this legislation is too broad, H.R. 9, Same thing they passed through here last year and rammed it through. Too broad, its implications too unclear, its effects unknowable. That's what witnesses and other experts have indicated. The conclusion, as I say, is move forward with these fundamental changes in our patent system, and if you do so, you might be undermining that system. We need not to move forward quickly on this, see what the impact of the past law changes are. That's what now has been indicated. But that is not what's happened. That's not what we've seen happen here in Capitol Hill. The House was railroaded into passing this new proposal on top of the previous legislation before we have a chance to see if it's going to have a negative or positive effect. And it's not even being fully implemented yet, but yet we were pushed. This thing was rammed down our throats. It seems like some multinational corporations really wanted action now. Do it now. Well, what's going on here? This congressional ramrodding exemplifies the battle to diminish America's patent system that had been going on for 25 years. This isn't something new. What I'm describing to you is just one more hit, one more attempt by people to harmonize American law with the rest of the world. We need to be more like the rest of the world. We have a strong protection of intellectual property rights. We should be more like the rest of the world. Baloney. Fact is, America should stand tall. If we want harmony with the rest of the world, they should harmonize with our stronger protection for the individual, for our caring for ordinary people. This law and these changes are going to change the way we do business in America, all right. We're not going to have the creative and the cutting edge as these very same mega multinational corporations go to countries like China in order to get cheap labor to accomplish their mission, rather than using the technology of Americans, giving them the royalty for it at least, in order to make sure our country and our countrymen are safe, our countrymen are secure, and our well-being of our people economically, and they have good jobs producing competitive products that they can sell overseas. No, these companies, they just want that power for themselves. They want to harmonize with the rest of the world so they can run roughshod over all of us. According to the sponsors of H.R. 9, it is an attempt to combat the problem of patent trolls. That's it. You look at their arguments, it's all patent trolls, patent trolls, patent trolls. Even though this study, mandated by Congress, shows that this much heralded problem is not a major driver of lawsuits. It has not caused, as they claim, a surge of new lawsuits. In fact, the most recent data shows that patent lawsuits dropped dramatically in 2014 compared to previous years. The provisions of this legislation are designed to make it much more complicated. Now, this is what it is. This legislation, H.R. 9, is designed to make it much more complicated, costly, and challenging to bring a lawsuit for patent infringement, thus hurting the little guy. The infringement is taking place. That means the victim is the little guy. We are helping the big guy, the guy who's committing the crime. They want to impact, if they want to, by the way, if these people wanted to impact frivolous lawsuits, if they say, oh, there's too many frivolous lawsuits with patents, they should just make it simpler and cheaper to defend against baseless infringement cases. Somebody is accused of infringement and it's baseless. Let's make it easier for these companies to defend themselves against that charge in court. But no, making it more easy to defend themselves, no. We are being asked to raise the bar for the inventor to bring lawsuits to defend his or her rights, rather than lowering the bar to allow small businesses and others to defend themselves against frivolous lawsuits. When we weaken the little guy, that's what we're doing. They want us to weaken the little guy to protect the big guy from frivolous lawsuits. Well, who gets hurt and who's helped? In the name of, you have the sinister cover up there, the trolls, and who's getting helped by that? These big mega corporations, and who's getting hurt? The little guys who can't go through all of the extra steps. They can't afford to protect themselves, and we're going to side with the big guys? The big guys, again, who take their work to China without blushing. This legislation is consistent with the decades, and I'm saying H.R. 9, with a decades-long war being waged on America's and against America's independent inventors. Here are a few provisions of this, quote, Innovation Act that now we just have submitted. It would create new requirements for a patent holder, when a patent holder once filing a claim for infringement, provide information about all the parties who are involved with this, and thus you basically have the accused infringer is going to know everybody who's involved, and thus be able to basically attack all of the people, not just the guy who's lost his intellectual property rights, but somebody who backed him up now will become a target of big corporations. This means the elimination of privacy for major business dealings. The little guy no longer has that right of privacy. A little guy is totally exposed, as his friends and suppliers will be. The patent holder will be forced to provide a list of potential bank accounts to raid, and those bank accounts and all of that information will be made available to the bad guys. The people who are infringing, the big companies who are beating them down, will now have all this information to use against them. In addition, once the requirement has been invoked, the patent holder must maintain a current record of the information on file at the patent office or forfeit the rights. What that means is the patent holder now has huge new bureaucratic reporting requirements, dramatically increasing his costs and vulnerability. That to a small investor or a small inventor, what does that say? You are increasing their costs dramatically. This is because they want, and why are we increasing their requirement for bureaucratic reporting? Because they have actually reported an infringement of their intellectual rights. Thus, they've got to pay the price. They've got to have the burden on them. We're going to put the burden on them for saying, somebody just stole my property, but we're increasing the burden on them. If they do that from then on, they have a whole new obligation, a bureaucratic obligation. In addition, the patent holder gains a new bureaucratic fee, not just bureaucratic requirements, but a fee, and forced to pay record-keeping fees to maintain current records office at the patent office. More fees, more bureaucratic requirements. These are minor inconveniences to multinational corporations. These people with hundreds, if not thousands of employees, it's not going to cost them anything. They won't pay. And in fact, when they go to court, they have a whole stable of attorneys. It won't take them much money there either. So these multinational corporations are, this isn't even an inconvenience. But for the little guy, all of these new requirements are killers, because they don't have the $100,000 they can just drop into this keeping better books over here, or getting hold of all of these people, or exposing anybody who's invested in their patent. The Innovation Act also enables large multinational corporations to create nested shell companies which have few assets but can infringe on patents while the inventor is unable to sue their customers, who are free to continue infringing. So they set up, we'll just do all of our business with this technology through that company, so if we get sued, they can't get at us. No way. While the first court case moves through the system, this is we're going to shield these big guys who are stealing. This process could keep an infringing process in place for a decade or more, while the inventor is trying to find ways of getting there to stop that infringement. The Innovative Act authorizes the Patent Office Director to create a patent troll database. How about that? And create a strategy to teach small business how to defend themselves against patent trolls. We are encouraging the Director of the Patent Office to create an enemies list of a strategy guide for people who are infringing on other people's patent rights. That's what we're talking about. They're trying to basically vilify a group of people who are involved in a perfectly legal and moral economic activity, helping out small business guys, buying small patent owners' rights to their patents if they can't enforce it themselves, or going into partnership with them. No. Now we're going to have a list of these people who are going to be on an enemies list, and that's mandated by the Patent Office according to this legislation. So we're encouraging this enemies list strategy, Instead of just, okay, if there's a frivolous lawsuit, let's just make it easier for someone to defend themselves in court. The ultimate results of this legislation will be increased patent infringement. You got that? This legislation, H.R. 9, will increase the amount of theft in our society because now we've made it easier. Reduced legal remedies. We have basically reduced the legal remedies for the victim, for those who have been infringed. We've reduced the investment in small business. Why are people going to invest in a new patent if they think it can be infringed upon and this guy isn't going to get his money back? So we've dramatically hurt the amount of money that's going to be invested in the new technology and the brilliant ideas that come out from our students from a university. You know, they come out and they have great ideas. We want them to go into small business and to follow their dream. Oh, no. No, this would make it almost impossible for people like that, our young people and small businessmen, people with a dream. The irreparable damage to our universities and research and to our inventors and our entrepreneurs, all of these people are going to be hurt. Let me put it this way. Our colleges and universities, they know that if this bill passes, the one that was going through the Senate passed, there would be a dramatic reduction in the value of all the patents that they own. And that's a major asset by our universities. Each part of this so-called reform is detrimental to the patent owners, especially damaging to individual small inventors. Every provision bolsters the patent thieves, the infringer, at the expense of the legal owner. Now, let's talk about, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about patent trolls, how evil they are. Troll is a bad word. You don't want to be on the side of the trolls. No. Everything they're proposing in the name of stopping the trolls, using that as cover, hurts the little guy and helps these big guys who are financing this campaign to undermine our patent system. This approach assists thieves because they are powerful corporations versus little guys whose only hope is that only hope of the little guy has always been that America stands for the God-given rights and that those rights are protected by our government, recognized and protected by it as it was in the Constitution. To all people, rich and poor, their rights are protected in this country, and we are not about, and we should not be about, to let big corporate interests step on the little guy. If a guy owns a piece of property and a big corporation wants to build a road across it, to build whatever it is on the other side, an oil derrick or whatever it is, they have to pay that man's price because he owns that property. And in this case, we're talking only about an ownership for 17 years, granted to somebody who's actually come up with something that of great value to our people. No, we need to make sure that we remain the country where we protect everybody's rights and that the big guys can't get away with stepping on the little guys. The rights of ownership are the same as all of our other rights: speech, religion, assembly. And this has been what we're seeing now in H.R. 9 in the last couple of years has been a blatant power grab by the big guys to diminish the rights of the little guy. When the bill identical to this one was previously submitted, opposition emerged to it as people figured out what I'm telling you. What I'm saying tonight, finally some people, when they heard the debate over here, they mobilized, and when they found out what was about to be foisted on them, you were speaking with loud voices. Here's some of those people who opposed or expressed major concerns over that act of a bill that was identical to H.R. 9, which is now perched and ready to be shoved through Congress. The Association of American Universities, American Council on Education, Association of American Medical Colleges, Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, Association of University Technology Managers, Council of American Government Relations, Eagle Forum, Club for Growth, American Business Association, American Bar Association, Patent Office Professional Association, Judicial Conference Committee on Rules and Practices and Procedures, American Intellectual Property Association, Intellectual Property Owners Association, National Association of Patent Practitioners, National Venture Capital Association, and also the Biotech Industry Organization, Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, PhRMA, Innovative Alliance, Coalition for the 21st Century Patent Reform, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Now, and let's just note, all of these were opposed or very concerned about that act because it creates more paperwork for everybody, increases the cost for anybody who wants to defend their rights, forces patent holders who file claims of infringement to maintain new bureaucratic reporting and to pay new record-keeping costs. Just complicates their lives and their expenses, eliminates the independent judicial review of patent applicants, striking Section 145 and 35. This is very important in order to keep the Patent Office honest. There should be an independent judicial review. That's what they tried to foist off on us last time. It dramatically increases the financial risk for anybody filing an infringement suit. We need to make sure that our country stays true to the American people, to what will give us security for our people. We need to be on the cutting edge of technology. We need to be ahead of our potential enemies. We can't defend our country man for man. We've got to have the best equipment and the high technology that comes from creative thinking of our people. We need to make sure that our working people are producing more wealth with every hour of work they do. Thus, we can afford to provide the services and the standard of living for ordinary people. If we actually just every time there's a new idea that we permit that to be stolen by multinational corporations, that's not going to improve the well-being of our people. We've seen this going on so far in the past. This is not the first time. This is just the last 25 years of onslaught. And what we have now in H.R. 9 is just the latest salvo into the effort to destroy the patent office or the patent system that we've got. But this happened a long time ago. We've had to reaffirm the rights of the little guy over and again. Does anyone ever, there's a statue in our Congress, in our Capitol here, to Philo Farnsworth. Philo Farnsworth. Do you know who Philo Farnsworth was? Philo Farnsworth was the inventor of the picture tube for the television. Philo was a farmer and an engineer in Utah. A man, not many resources at all, but he figured out something that RCA, one of the biggest corporations in the country at the time, was trying to find. How do you create a picture tube? Well, he wrote them, said, I found the secret. And what do you know? They sent their top engineer over, and Philo actually showed them what he had done, and they said, well, we're going to get back to you, we're going to work with you as your partner. And you know what they did? He could never get a hold of them again. David Sarnoff, one of the richest and most powerful men in the United States, set out to steal the rights for the patent for the picture tube from this lone American. This guy had a small farm in Utah, and and Philo Farnsworth didn't give up. He led a struggle for 20 years to get his rights to own that technology, that intellectual property. And when he was fighting this huge corporate interest that was trying to just squish him like a bug, he stood up there, and he couldn't have stood alone. People invested in his lawsuit. People invested with him so that justice would come and that inventors in the United States would know that when they invent something, they have a right and the American people will stick by them. In the end, the Supreme Court made the decision, and they decided with the little guy. They decided with Philo. What a great affirmation of our country. And there is a statue today of Farnsworth in the Capitol, the man who advanced communications in our country. You'll never find a statue to David Sarnoff or any of these big moguls who tried to squish him. These multinational corporations, let's remember the heart of America, patriotism. Let's be loyal to our regular people. They will be loyal to us. That's what this American Revolution was all about. And I ask for my colleagues to join me in opposing H.R. 9. And I invite people to talk about it and to talk to their congressmen and their senators and to make sure that they don't come in here for a vote not knowing how important this vote is on H.R. 9. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman has yielded back.
The chair will recognize your motion to adjourn.
The chair will recognize a motion to adjourn.
I do here now move that the House adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion